Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. I am so excited to have Ken here today. Hi, Ken.
Hey, how you doing, Annie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a little cloudy here in my home, but spring's coming in. It's been a nice spring for me.
Yeah, we are having our end of spring snowstorm yesterday and today. It always happens that way. It's like one last hurrah.
You have mud season coming up soon, right?
Yes, mud, runoff, flooding, the whole thing.
Yep.
But
Nothing like that. I'm in Virginia. We don't quite get that. It's just green as everything here. I've mowed the grass like a dozen times already.
beautiful. Love it. So why don't you kind of walk us back to the beginning for you? Like where did it all start for you with alcohol? What was it
Yeah.
like growing up? Stuff like that.
Well, I grew up in a time when in the '70s where it wasn't uncommon to get together with the guys, get in the car, stop at the convenience store, and pick up those quarts of brands of beer that are not even made anymore. Like Schlitz, Iron City, things like that. And I grew up in West Virginia at the time. The drinking age was 18, so it was easy to fudge it a little bit and get a head start on things. And I went to college, and the school I went to had a hard partying reputation, and I did my part to keep up with that. But I got through all that in good shape. Just pretty much the normal college binge drinking and such. And then settled into life, but moved along, and I'm 60 now. It's probably about 10 years ago I started to detect that, like, I may be drinking a little more than I need to. I'm just having a beer or two each night. But then pretty soon that's becoming a much more common thing. By about 5 years ago, I'm starting to realize that I'm supplementing, shall we say, my regular drinking with just a few on the side. You get done mowing the grass and you want to have a beer. Well, it won't hurt to stick another one in the freezer there to have later. Nobody needs to know about that. So you're having more. And, by about 3 years ago, I knew I was in a big problem. I was in that situation where it's not a sustainable practice. This just can't really continue the way it's going on. And, you want to slow down, you want to moderate, you want to stop, but you're not quite sure how to bring it out to people. You find yourself, I think, because of the stigma, we
Yeah.
associate with alcoholism. It's very difficult for people, at least it was for me, just to say, hey, I have a problem with I'm drinking more than I really want to. You don't, you're going to with that brush that says, oh, are you an alcoholic? Well, that's not good. What are we going to do about that? As opposed to, like, wow, well, geez, that's a problem. It's understandable, since alcohol is an addicting substance, and we all drink it. So yeah, let's see what we can do to help you out. But that's not the way you think. You're afraid that you're going to be an alcoholic, and nobody
Yeah.
wants to be that. So probably I've been sober for over 2 years ago. So about 2 years and a few months back, I just finally just broke down. I had to tell my family that, look, I've got a real drinking problem. I'd gone from having that little bit of extra beer or wine around to having, to making those stops at the liquor store, keeping the extra vodka stashed around the house, and, nipping off and having to have more because you couldn't stop yourself. You had to keep that rush of alcohol consumption going on. So yeah, I came out to them and said, look, I've really got a problem. And from that point, I I just decided I would stop at that point, and did pretty well, but then I slipped back, and was very fortunate in being outed by a friend of the family who happened to see me popping into the liquor store and knew this is the problem. So I show up at home after work, and there's my wife and my grown son, he's 25 now, sitting there waiting for me. And I was like, yeah, something's going down. So at that point, I went to counseling, with them.
Before you started, before you
Yeah,
decided to stop sort of the first time, was there any specific incidents? Were there any things that happened, or was it kind of a just accumulation?
I'd say it was more of a, just an accumulation, again, as I said earlier, I really felt like, okay, I understand this is unsustainable. The way I feel, I can see what this is doing to my health. The things you always read about, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just horrible night sweats, just, feeling hungover every day, trying to track and control your drinking and realizing like, oh, a real win of a day was if you had 4 or 5 drinks, that was good, so, you just realize that this can't continue. And I think the ultimate culmination was, one night being at home and nipping off my extra drinks here and there, and then just my wife just looking at me and say, "What is wrong with you? What is wrong?" And then, I finally just broke down and said, "Look, this is what's going on."
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like at that point, you already know internally so deeply that just a little bit of reflection from someone else, you're like, yep,
Yeah,
jig is up.
yeah, something's wrong, and you've just gotta do something. But again, it was hard to do because it's hard to ask for help if you have an issue with alcohol. I think,
Mhm.
as it's been pointed out by you and a lot of other people, if you were to say, wow, I'm just smoking too much, I really need to quit smoking, everybody'd be right on board with helping you with that. Like, yeah, of course, tobacco's terrible for you, you should stop. But if you're drinking, it has a whole different connotation to people.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, it's so that difference is so pronounced, right? When nobody feels you've done something wrong, shame on you, go hide in the closet if you are just like, I want to quit smoking.
Right.
So interesting.
Yeah, there's a real feeling of guilt about it. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll dive into it later, but that's one of the valuable things change in mindset I picked up from reading your book and coming in touch with some other people who are out there who had a very different look on what's going on when you've got a drinking issue.
Yep. Yep, for sure. So then somebody caught you at the liquor store, you came home
Yep.
and
Got the confrontation there from my, like I said, from my wife and son, and they, and right then that was really the big turning point. The first time had been a turning point for sure when I said, "Wow, I've got a problem." But that was it for me. I just realized, I just can't continue on like that. So I fessed up. Okay, here's what I got. Here's my, miniatures that I picked up to tide myself through the day or the night, and. Yeah, I'll do what I need to do to get control of this, and because I just didn't want to go through that anymore. I didn't like it for myself, and I didn't like what I was seeing it doing to the people I love.
yeah, for sure. That's hugely self-aware. That's great. So then what steps did you take?
Well, at that point, we my unfortunately, my family knows some people who are in social work, so they were able to make some good recommendations on counselors who work with this. We went in as a group, my wife, my son, and I, and talked to the fellow we worked with, and he was quite good. He suggested at the time that I should look into doing like outpatient rehab. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll do that. That'll be great. Again, at this point, I was on board. I wanted to lick this problem. I didn't want this problem to go on anymore. And so, I started looking into the local rehabs and such, and then went in, visited a couple, and I didn't like really what I saw. I felt like stepping into those. I was stepping into, for lack of a better word, the rehab industrial complex. It looked like a situation designed to kind of take, put me on their schedule and then, take my money from me. And even though I'd had, kind of a relapse, not kind of a relapse, I'd had a relapse. I felt at the time that I was starting to do some things that were turning myself around, that I was getting on a much better place. So, and they said, okay, you need to be coming in here like every night and doing all this and that and the other thing. And I was like, wow, that's going to stop me from like doing the things I think I'm doing now, which are helping me out. For example, I have a long history as an athlete. I'm a marathon runner. I'm an ultra runner. I've done an Ironman race, triathlon, and I was able to. At the time, I was getting back into a good flow with my exercise. I'd taken up yoga and meditation, and that was great. I was getting on a good schedule with that. So I was really feeling like, okay, I'm starting to do positive things for myself that are working out. And I looked at what rehab was going to ask me to do, and it was going to take that all away from me because I wouldn't have time to do it anymore. I would be going to work and then going and sitting in meetings with them. So we went back to our counselor, and I told him basically that. I said, I don't like what they want me to do there. And he said, well, tell you what, why don't you try going to like AA 3 times a week and see how that works for you? So I very dutifully started attending AA meetings, and only to find out later that he didn't think that was going to work for me. He thought, no, he'll relapse and he'll have to go to rehab. But I dutifully did that, and in the meanwhile, really kept looking around for other resources and other people's writings on the issues. And I think one of the early things for me is I stumbled across Holly Whitaker's hip sobriety blogs, and I loved Holly's attitude. She's so she's rampantly kind of feminist, and I like that, her attitude, and I just liked her sort of. Do I have to watch my language here? I liked her sort of fuck off alcohol look at things. So that was good. I liked the way she looked at saying, don't think of yourself as an alcoholic. Think of yourself as somebody who's got a problem with alcohol. It's a whole totally different thing. You're not you've got a problem with this and you can fix it. There's nothing inherently wrong with you that you can't, take care of. And by bumping into all that and some other things, the Reddit stop drinking subreddit was a really supportive kind of group. And that's when I kind of bumped into your book, which I found probably one of the most crucial things for me, because it had a much more scientifically based look at this is what's going on in your mind, this is what's going on in your brain. And it's much better than if you were having a bad day and thinking, wow, I've got cravings for alcohol, to say, oh, I understand why I have a craving for alcohol. It's not that, I have defects of character that are leading me astray. It's that, you're pouring rocket fuel into your body, and it's really messing up your brain. So, it gives you a better place to work from to get there. So, long story short, I did, because I promised to everybody, I did AA for a year. For 6 months, I did 3 meetings a week. Then I did 2 months. Then for 6 months, I did 2 a week. And then when I got to 1 year, I picked up my chip, and that was that with them. Though I did go back to the first meeting I'd gone to on my 2nd anniversary.
Nice.
And yeah, and that was just a really weird eye opener, because I become accustomed to realizing, what alcohol done to me and how I needed to approach that. And I went into this meeting and heard all these people saying, wow, I'm a really messed up person. and that's why I'm drinking, as opposed to like, wow, alcohol really messed me up. How can I stop drinking alcohol? And so here I am, about 2 years and about a month and a half out, and feeling great.
That's so
Keeping,
awesome.
yeah, I'm keeping LaCroix in business, like I think a lot of people do, after they quit drinking. But other than that, I'm feeling great.
That's great. That's so awesome. And then when you wrote us originally, you'd used some tools, like some technology tools
Oh,
that I think are really fascinating.
yeah, that's an interesting point. Well, you start looking around thinking, once you get off the mindset that there's something really, wrong in, deep within you, you start looking at, okay, how can I work around this problem I have? And one of the things I did was I thought, gosh, I'm using my smartphone. I mean, I have a smartphone that's crammed with apps. There's got to be something out there to help you with that. And so I started searching, and sure enough, you can buy breathalyzers that link to your iPhone. And early on, I saw that. I said, wow, that's great. I told my wife and family, I said, okay, you guys get your app, and I'm going to be checking in X number of times per day. And you just do your business, and it just automatically pings them that you've checked in and you're okay. And that was really helpful early on. I mean, you get cravings. It's hard to stop sometimes. You're driving down the same road, and where you can make that turn to park behind the shopping center and walk around the corner to the liquor store. And every time you drive by, you feel your pulse start to go up a little bit, but you're going to be checking yourself. You've made yourself responsible. Nobody's telling you have to do it. You said, I'm going to do this, and you're going to know. So that was good. Very affirming kind of thing. And so
I love that.
Yeah, I'd urge anybody to use a tool like that. Just do a Google search. You'll find these things out there.
And I think it's really powerful, because I think when people rebel against those sorts of things, or when they're forced upon them, right? Because then it doesn't feel like you've empowered your own choice.
Yeah. And I think that almost relates back to what I'd said about the whole rehab thing. It felt like, okay, I understand I've got a problem. I'm working on it now. If you put me in rehab, I'm not going to feel like I have a choice. People are forcing me to do things. And I looked at that. I was thinking, if anything would make me relapse again, it would be, feeling like I'm being, railroaded down some route. I need to have control of this. And I think that, the more control I could take over it, the better I felt about it.
That's awesome.
Better success. So, I mean, like I said, it's been about, like one relapse really over that span, and it's going great.
So with the technology, do you feel that it would have been as effective and helpful if you had not given the app to your son and to your wife?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective, because they were a really big part of this. If it hadn't been for them realizing kind of what I was doing to them, besides myself, and also them, confronting me, when I'd slipped back, who knows where I would have ended up. Hopefully well, but it was good that it happened. So, having the people you trust and love, that you can, let them know that you're taking this seriously. And it was super helpful. And in fact, they knew right away,
Yeah, and I assume it rebuilt quite a bit of trust.
It did. Yeah, it did. I'm trying to remember the exact time I quit using this device. I think at a certain point we said, okay, we can just stop using it. But there were, to be honest, there were a couple occasions after that where, for whatever reason, they're going to have their suspicions. They think, okay, I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel suspicious. I need you to do this. And, I would say, yeah, rummage through the drawer, pull it out, and say, yeah, I'm okay. But it did help rebuild trust. Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. And I think the dynamic here is really interesting, because you did it for you, but you involved them. And so you felt fully in control, and then they felt really great, because they were, being kind of brought on the journey, and they were part of the solution, but it wasn't originating from them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I I've never really talked to them too much in depth about, exactly what their feelings were, but I think they liked the fact that that was there, that was a resource that was there. And, they knew what was going on. They knew, it wasn't just me saying, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm okay. They knew, checking in, that I'm okay.
Yeah, it's great. I talk a lot about like this idea of positive peer pressure, telling people you love. And a lot of times people are so afraid of positive peer pressure because they're like, well, I want to get this under control. So I know it's under control so that when I tell the people I love, I'm on firm ground and I'm not going to disappoint them. But you
Right.
had a level of vulnerability that was like, look, come along with me, support me, but under kind of my framework and my rules, so to speak. Like I'm telling you how many times I'm going to check in. I'm telling you what you can hold me accountable for. And then so you invoke the positive peer pressure totally on your terms. And just I think it's really powerful and I think it's really interesting. And I wonder if you could talk at all to that fear of, oh, well, I don't want to tell other people. I'd rather nip this first because I don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and it's very true. I spent a lot of time thinking to myself that, okay, I can get this under control. And it kind of again relates back to, I think, how in society we look at an alcohol problem. That we don't look at it as, well, you become addicted to a substance, and it's only natural that it would happen because people are telling you to drink all the time. And I, so I struggled for a long time trying to get this under control, and I knew I had to get it under control. But yeah, I couldn't do it really until I finally just came out and said, because if you're only, doing it, being responsible to yourself, it's really easy to just kind of put it back. It's like, okay, well, I did okay, through the day, and I did okay yesterday. So yeah, I can reward myself by tossing a few back here, as opposed to finally, coming out and saying, I just can't do this anymore. I have to stop. And, people are going to be suspicious anyway if you just say, yeah, I just decided to quit drinking. They're going to say,
Yeah.
well, why was that? So
Yeah.
it's going to come out at some point. So, what's the old analogy? If you're going to take the Band-Aid off, you can try to take it off slowly, or you can just rip it right off and put up with a minor bit of pain for a while. So I think in my case, I finally got to the point where I just had to, rip the adhesive tape off and get started on the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that I remember that so vividly. There was a moment where I got a text from a friend, and I hadn't spoken to her in like 6 or 8 months. I'd moved, and so we weren't as in close of touch. And she's like, the text was basically like, "Oh, Annie, I heard you'd stopped drinking. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you must have gone through to make that decision. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm here supporting you in any way I can and whatever." And I was just like, wow, that is so it shows, if that's our gut reaction to somebody stopping drinking, like what must have you gone through? Like what must have happened,
Yeah.
When, the reality, and it sounds like for you too, was that, yeah, there were red flags, but we saw where the train was going and decided to get off of it before any of those things happened that we sort of had to, go through.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. One of the things you mentioned earlier about positive peer pressure, you mentioned your friend. It reminded me of an interesting part of this whole dynamic was that, my son went to a very small school. And, unlike a lot of people go to larger schools, you kind of lose track of people. He really stayed in touch with, all his old schoolmates. And so, we had a whole circle of friends based around that, the parents we knew from other kids. And once this all blew up, he told all his friends, and a lot of them just went ahead and told their parents. So right away, you had this whole, for the positive side, a support group around you, so when the New Year's party comes up, people are being very, very nice, very nice and considerate of you, and saying, oh, we've got we've got soft drinks over there for you, you know. But, and in a way that's a little annoying, but, but also it was good. Again, there was this whole circle of people who just knew that, okay, you know, this is what's going on with Ken. And, you know, and in a way it was a positive thing. And it created more of that positive, you know, peer pressure around me, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good. I think that's, yeah, sometimes it happens accidental, like with your son. Sometimes it happens on purpose, but I think it happening is really important. I mean, I sent an email to like pretty much all my close friends and family right away. And it was like, hey, stop drinking. And I remember my brother, who'd stopped drinking years and years before me, wrote back, he's like, wow, that's a ballsy thing to do, basically. I was like, thanks. And, but it was that thing like, okay, well, that's out there now. You know, it's not because we can trick ourselves so easily, you know, oh, like you were saying, well, one won't hurt. Well, it's not that bad. Well, just a little, I mean, it's so easy to talk yourself in and out of something, you know, because you're in your own head. Whereas if you're really invoking that, what are other people going to think? There's a lot of power in that. So that's huge. So, I mean, I love this aspect of technology combined with the positive peer pressure. I think it's huge. I think a lot of people can, you know, probably follow in your footsteps and be helped by that nuance you've brought to this whole conversation. It's very, very cool.
Nice. Glad to hear that.
So, I always ask this kind of at the end, can I, you know, hiding vodka around the house and stuff, about what life is like now, and what encouragement would you give him?
I missed the very first part of that. It kind of froze up, but I guess you're asking if I was talking to somebody in a similar situation.
Oh, no, if you were talking to yourself. So if you were talking back to Ken of a few years ago.
Wow. The first thing I would say is you get some knowledge about what's going on with you. And I just can't say it enough. We have as a society, you know, a certain look at, you know, what, you know, substance abuse related to alcohol is, and that's just means that you're an alcoholic, you know, and that's a bad thing. And well, it's certainly not a good thing, but it brings up all those connotations of, you know, you've got a problem deep inside you that's causing this. You've got this, whatever you want to say. Oh, you have a genetic problem. You have this problem. You have this problem. You have this problem. As opposed to just looking at the fact that, look, you have an alcohol problem because alcohol is extremely dangerous, and many people get caught up in the web of what it can do to you. So if I were talking to myself, I'd say, do some reading, find out, you know, what's going on. Why are you craving alcohol? You know, what's going on? And then the other thing I would say is like, it's totally cool on the other side of this. You know, one of the things I often thought about when I was, you know, first realized, look, I just can't drink anymore, is that there's actually probably billions of people in the world who live really interesting and productive lives who just don't choose to drink. And if you just look around a little bit, it's not too hard to find them. There are, you know, a lot of positive role models out there. And, you know, they're not just like, you know, dull, gloomy people, you know, they're people doing interesting things. And so, you know, realize that, you know, your identity isn't all wrapped up in, you know, drinking. It isn't wrapped, you know, you can go off to the brew pub with your friends and enjoy yourself. You know, we just had the National Basketball Championship of the NCAAs, and I live in Virginia, and the University of Virginia won the NCAAs. So I spent like the Final Four hanging out in brew pubs with people, watching basketball games, watching copious amounts of beer being drank, and still having just a great time drinking the cream soda, you know. So, you know, your life doesn't end when you quit drinking. And if anything, it probably becomes you know, a lot more interesting. And also, so yeah, there's some good stuff on the other side. Let yourself know exactly, you know, what's going on. Find out what's going on in your brain, and just don't be afraid to talk to the people you care about that this is going on. And then going forward, just don't be afraid to say to people, yeah, I don't drink. If they want to know about it, they'll ask about it. But frankly, I haven't found that most people are really that interested. Just kind of say it, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. So good. So good. I know people really try to overcomplicate that, I think. And I speak from my own experience. I felt like I certainly tried to overcomplicate that. And when you're so stuck in the, oh my gosh, everybody's going to judge me, it's going to be so weird. Or if you have a few experiences where that does happen and you don't yet have the insight to realize that's actually them just reflecting their own insecurities onto you, you really can start to overcomplicate that. And I think that's really true. The energy you bring to that conversation, if it's, well, I mean, I kind of like just stop drinking. It just invites like a barrage, right? But if it's just this closed, confident, yeah, no, I don't drink. Like that's that. Like, my husband does it beautifully. And it's funny too, because he just like, he doesn't have the emotional background with it. Like he's somebody who truly just chose to stop drinking because after he saw the research that I'd done and after just being married to me for a few years, he's like, okay, like no logical person would put that in their body anymore. Like, and so he's smart and he's like, no smart human being would drink alcohol. That does, but once you know, like if you don't know, then that's fine. But once you know, like there's just no, so there was no for him shame. There was no, I messed up. There was no, I mean, I don't even, he maybe got drunk like 5 times in his whole life. Like none of that. He was just like, this makes no sense. So for him, that conversation is so easy. There's no over emotion in it. There's no emotion in it. It's not triggering. It's like, he got somebody, we live in a big forest, right? And so there's forest fires, a massive concern. So last Saturday we went, and all the neighbors were cleaning up all the dead trees. So we all met together. We were cleaning up dead trees. And some neighbors come up and introduce themselves to him. And they're like, hey, do you like beer? Like that's literally their intro line. He's like, no, I don't drink, but what's up? And they're like, oh, well, we have a barbecue and stuff. And he's like, yeah, still love to come. And it was so seamless and just like just a non-issue because it was such a confident, closed energy, not inviting a lot of debate. But I think that's really true. I think you're spot on. I think people absolutely overcomplicate that just based on their own fear and emotion. And again, speaking from experience, I know that's exactly what I did.
Right. Well, and I think Holly Whitaker is so good about relating the idea that the message is out there that drinking, it goes with everything. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you should probably be drinking. The alcohol industry wants you to, treat it as something completely normal and something you should be doing all the time, and I love to read her rail against, the whole, wine and women problem, like, hey, having a play date with the kids? Well, bring some nice rosé, which actually doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Why you should be sitting there drinking, while you're trying to interact with your kids. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a very different world on the other side when you're looking at it and saying, gosh, yeah, it really doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And I can't say I've had any occasions, in the last couple of years where I thought, gosh, I really wish I were still drinking.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. Once you get over the craving and the thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly. Every time I hang out with people who do drink, I have the exact opposite and uncomfortable feeling. I remember the first, about a year and a half into it for me, we went on a big camping trip with a lot of different people who always drank. And we'd gone to the grocery store, we'd bought a bunch of good food, we were just about to go into the mountains. And then like, wait, we need to stop at the liquor store. And I hadn't even thought of stopping at the liquor store, which would have been totally our routine before. We'd camped before with these people and always would have stopped at the liquor store. Of course, you can't not get food and forget the beer. But Brian and I, my husband, we both like looked at each other and we're like, oh my God, I feel such a sense of pity right now. Like, I don't want to be like pitying my friends, but just seeing it for being, it just felt sad and stuck. And oh man, like, we're going to have a great experience in the mountains and you're not going to remember part of it. And like, and then they woke up hungover the next day and you just see it and you're like, wow. And it doesn't matter if they're just ordering a glass of wine with their meal, because I still feel like, gosh, I'm so glad I'm not wasting my money anymore. Like all of the things. There's not a time where I'm like, wow, I wish I was back there. Poor me, which is such a cool thing. But yeah, it's a great point.
One funny story that kind of brings that home, and it's not directly related to alcohol, but I backpack and I'm living here in the East. I've got a long-term project to finish the whole Appalachian Trail. And right at my first year anniversary, I went down to Georgia to hike like the first 200 miles. And I was hiking along. I'd been going for about a week, and it was actually, the day was April 20th. So it was 420 day. And you're out there with a lot of mostly a young demographic. And I stopped at this campsite and was camping, and they've got a fire going, and, kids are sitting around, passing around the substance. And, and right up the trail, there was this overlook, and I went up there. And I saw probably the most amazing sunset I'd ever seen in my life. It was just absolutely perfect. And I was just awestruck by how amazing it was. And I got my pictures and sat there, and it got dark, and I walked back down there. And, of course, sitting around the fire, all these people like celebrating. And they completely missed this amazing sunset because it was more important to sit around the fire and get high. And, substitute beer, passing the flask around, they missed it. They probably thought they were having the cooler experience, but sorry, you guys missed the whole thing right there.
That's so interesting. So true. So true. Yeah. Yeah. It's just great to be in a place where like, okay, I know that is not the case. So Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, I've had a great time talking to you. It's been fun. And again, I do appreciate your work and bringing your book out. It was big for me. It's been a good touchstone for me. If I ever have the opportunity to recommend it to somebody in need, I certainly will. Well, I guess I'm doing that now. But yeah, it's good. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a great day. And thanks again for your time. This is such a good story and really good tips that I think will help people a lot.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Let me ask you a question. What is better than change? Lasting change, of course. And if you've had trouble making change stick, either with alcohol or in any other area of your life, you are in for a treat. I created the 100 Days of Lasting Change to ensure that we don't just change for a moment, but we truly transform for a lifetime. And this program is so close to my heart. Thousands of people have been through it and their results are incredible. But don't take my word for it. Check it out at thisnakedmind.com/100 days. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.